Hey, welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number 223. This is the class before Rosh Hashanah. So I wonder what we would talk about here today. Maybe something about Rosh Hashanah. Sit up. Okay. You know, it's good to have a stage director. Okay. I don't see anybody else sitting up, I don't see anybody else at all. Um,
They don't have their picture on.
they
Oh,
have their
okay.
picture on, but
Okay.
they're hidden.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it is the week before Rosh Hashanah. So we're blowing the shofar. Tomorrow will be the last day of blowing the shofar because we want to confuse the son. We don't want him to know the Rosh Hashanah is coming. So we won't do it Erev Rosh Hashanah. Ah, but it does say in Prophet Yeshayahu in Isaiah that on that day, pick up a shofar gadol, there will be blown the big shofar, ובא כל העובדים בארץ אשור ומצרים, all of those who were lost in Egypt and in Syria will come and does the rest of it go? How does the song go? And they will bow before Hashem. Okay. Good. I got that right. So there's a mimer from the Alter Rebbe which examines this line. What are we talking about? First off, what's the big shofar? We blow a shofar every Rosh Hashanah. What is the special about the big shofar that it's talking about? Obviously, there's a shofar we blow every Rosh Hashanah, but on that day, meaning the day Mashiach comes, we'll blow the big shofar. So what's the difference between the big shofar and the shofar we blow now? And why do you have to blow a big shofar then? Those are that is a question. And it's not going to just be a question, it's going to be something relevant to us. Obviously, I'm not asking these questions just because this is an interesting intellectual class, and that's what we teach here is intellectual things, and we know it so you can fall asleep and have a good, sleep before it's sleepless, and you go to bed early, and that's not what we're doing here. So we're doing this because we definitely need some sort of chizuk, we need some sort of strengthening, and we need to understand what this holiday is about. So if you look at that, it says also, it doesn't say who's blowing the shofar. It just says it blows. It means it sounds like it's saying, and that's what the rabbis say also, that it blows by itself. What is this shofar that blows itself? What is that all about? Why is the shofar blowing itself? Why do we mention who's blowing it? What does this have to do with shofar? And in general, it has to have to do with Rosh Hashanah. So in general, the idea is obviously that there will be a shofar we blow every year, and there's a shofar, this special shofar that's blown, and that is a shofar that's loud enough to so that all the Jews, whoever are lost, not just lost in physical Egypt, but lost spiritually in all sorts of strange places, like I read about Jewish Voice for Peace this week, that they were putting up posters, not about peace. They said, that it's a moral imperative to wipe out the Jews, to wipe out Israel. So
What?
that was, this is not peace. This is Jewish voices of hate and war. It's like, so there are Jews who are lost. They may not even be Jews for all we know. But anyway, let's assume that they might be Jews or influenced by that. Then why are they, they are well, and then we've got the wonderful New York Times, which was mourning the death of a terrorist, saying that he was such an enlightened person, and he wanted to bring Jews and Christians and Muslims all together, and they got called on it. Even the New York Times can't get off scot free just saying something like that. The man, literally, he said that that it's just a blessing that Israel, all the Jews are together in Israel because that's easier to wipe them out. I mean, he was a terrorist. He was a terrorist. He wanted to kill Jews. So, New York Times somehow missed the point. As the media does miss the point, but maybe because it misses the point, that's a good way to expose them as completely lost. So, all right, I got off the tangent, but I was venting a little bit. Jews are lost. That's not a bad thing. I think that's actually a good news, and that is that it will come a time where there still will be Jews who seem to be very lost and very far away from Yiddishkeit, and yet Hashem is going to gather them all in. They're not lost entirely. No one is completely lost. No one is ever hopeless. No one is ever missing from the scene. Everyone is part of, is going to be collected together. And that is a very good statement about it, even though we might think of it as, how can it happen? But, tshuva happens in a blink of an eye, it happens instantaneously. So it doesn't matter what happened before. That actually is an interesting lesson about all the Rosh Hashanah. People ask the question, how can you expect a good next year to be good? Look at how bad this year turned out, at the very beginning. The answer is there's a whole new energy that comes into the world on Rosh Hashanah. The whole energy that was in the world before departs. And that night before the blowings of the shofar, we bring it down. But before that, it's a whole new energy, a whole new possibility. Whatever you thought was written in for your life for the past year doesn't matter anymore. It's going to come a new year on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and it's going to be filled with all sorts of new stuff that you didn't necessarily ever experience before. So it's an exciting time and it's a happy time. So that is, in general, that's one thing about what the idea of the shofar of what happens on Rosh Hashanah. That there's this new energy that's brought into the world, and it's an energy that we bring into the world. Now, it's partly we do it because how do we do it? Okay, so let's get into that a little bit. Why is the shofar specifically the thing that brings in this new energy? And why is it blowing? Why do we talk about the shofar in the future blowing by itself? And what is this big shofar? So there's a certain amount of energy, newness that we bring in each year. That is true, but that was the newness that was already planned for the year before, part of the world. It's a continuation of world, but it's a brand new kind of world. The time that Mashiach comes, it will be on a whole new, different level, a level we've never experienced before, and it doesn't even relate to the world that exists before. That's what the big shofar is. But that shofar that's done it blows by itself, meaning it's not necessarily our efforts to do it. It's God responding to all the efforts that we do during the time of Gullus. Let's explain that. So some people wonder, so we did bring up the question before of what is this idea that, by blowing the shofar, we crown God king and we bring in a whole new energy and eventually we bring in Mashiach. So the Rebbe Marash says an interesting thing. And this is what he says. He says, why is the shofar, here's the question, why is the shofar narrow at one end and big at the other end? Well, because if you blow at the big end and you're going to get up, you won't hear anything, it'll just be nothing comes out and so forth. Musical instruments, Hadass can probably tell us that, all wind and, reed instruments and so forth. Remember taking these music classes with all that stuff, and so forth. They playing single reed, double reed, all this other kinds of, you need a small hole and then an echo chamber comes out to make the sound. It's more than that. It says that everyone who starts out with the year poor, Rosh, like Rosh Hashanah, ends up with the year being rich. When we cry out, min ha-meitzar, from our straits, from our difficulties, from our pains, karasiya, we crawl to Hashem. That's the line we say before we blow the shofar. Then Hashem, ananu b'mir chaviyad. God answers us very expansively. In a certain way, the reason why God gives us a new year and he's so pleased with us and we need to bring him in and to be the king and to take care of the world and to renew his contract with the world. It happens through us, but it doesn't happen through us per se through our acts. It sort of happens through us by emptying ourselves and realizing, what? It's not going to be me that's doing this. It's really the godly part inside of me, part of me that was given to me as a gift, the part of me that is unquenchable, the part of me that is indestructible, the part of me that's the essence of me. And that part of me is always there no matter what. And that part of me is what I cry out with from the shofar. That's why, of course, as we probably all know, that the sounds of the shofar are like the baby cries, right? The baby cries 3 different ways. And then and then sometimes he's just all broken into little staccato. In a certain way, Rosh Hashanah is getting back to the core of who we are. after that indestructible infant and child who trusts in Hashem, who knows that Hashem cares about him, and knows that God is going to take care of us. Shofar is not an intellectual, a musical thing that's played with a lot of training and talent. It's coming from the depth of the soul, and therefore everybody has that inside of themselves to be able to do and cry out the cock-a-doodle-doo sound of the shofar and to be able to call into Hashem. And I heard a nice metaphor for this. It was from Rabbi, who was not related to this, was another talk completely. It was from Rabbi YY. He was talking to a group of women, and he says, after you nurse your child, the little infant, and his belly is now full and so forth, you see him, goes to sleep immediately right away because, belly's full and so forth, and he's breathing nice and rhythmically and sleeping like a baby. And you sort of are envious of this child, because how calm and how trusting and how faith and calm this child has, And why does he have so much faith and calm? He doesn't know where his food is going to come again. He has no reason to believe that he's going to be fed again. He's not intellectually aware of this because he realizes, that he's in the bosom of God, and God takes care of him. So that is also what that's the faith and calm we also need to develop for this coming year, is that kind of trust that's not based on necessarily our knowledge. It's actually getting rid of our mind in a certain way, not being about our knowledge and not thinking about it so much, but knowing that, God really cares about ourselves. We realize that God cares and he's giving me energy, then I don't have to necessarily understand how that is, but he's giving me the capability and the talents and the ability to be able to transform this entire world. And that is what he's doing on Rosh Hashanah, and that's the faith and calm that we have. When we put that faith and calm and trust in Hashem, then yes, he answers us because we're calling from the narrowness. Narrowness meaning it ain't about how big I am and how great I am and how powerful I am. It's all about how small I am really in relation to Hashem. But then it expands out, the shofar grows, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it brings down this whole new energy. And that is the big shofar that blows on Rosh Hashanah, that we blow, and that calls out the big shofar that eventually Mashiach will come, and Mashiach will blow doesn't say the shofar will blow itself, and that will herald the Mashiach into this world. And that is the sound of the big shofar that happens by itself. But it comes not necessarily through us, that when they say blows by itself, it comes through a power from above, but it's triggered. And it's catalyzed by actions by human beings down below when the human beings connect with Hashem and they blow our shofar and we say, Hashem in heaven, please, please, please take us out of this galus, take us out. This has been enough. And God hears that, and he hears, you know what? I blew a shofar at Har Sinai, but that was to inspire you. Now I see you really want to reattach to me. That desire to reattach, that actually causes there to be a lashana tov u'mesuka, siva v'chasima lashana tov u'mesuka for each and every one of you, and each and every one of the Jews. And this year, like you see, the Rebbe Rosh said, if it started out in a way of poorness, it's going to end in a way of richness in all things spiritual and all things physical and all kinds of miraculous events that are happening. And we now haven't even begun to see how miraculous it is. And the most miraculous one I think of all is that Israel just keeps going ahead and doing what it has to do. And it says, I ain't listening to you because we've listened to you before and it's a bunch of garbage. And you know what? We're just not listening to them anymore because it's just, they just don't get it. So we have to teach them what it means to care about our fellow Jews. Okay. And with that, I think.
Shana Tova, and have a
Shana Tova, Metoka.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me pin myself and pin this.
Can I ask a question about Slichot?
Yes.
Okay, if I can answer.
So we're supposed to read them up to Yom Kippur, right? And in Siddur, it says Slichot for Monday, Thursday. So you basically repeat them up to Yom Kippur?
Custom in Chabad, maybe even there are different customs here. The Sephardim started in Rosh Chodesh Elul, and they've been doing it every single day before.
No, I have. My husband has a Chabad Siddur. My Chabad is like a regular art scroll type. My Siddur is art scroll,
Okay.
but my husband has Chabad Siddur.
So that you notice, so now you notice the difference. So the custom Ashkenaz is to redo it for the entire week before Rosh Hashanah, and then double the amount, and you'll see it in the Siddur for the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Chabad custom is to stop on before the day before Rosh Hashanah. So Erev Rosh Hashanah is the last day. It's triple length. But that will be the last day of Slichos per se. There are Slichos set on some Gedalia, which is Sunday, but that's because it's a fast day. That's a different idea of Slichos. So,
Also, they're unique slichos. They're not the slichos for Monday and Thursday.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what
sorry.
I see. It says
Yeah.
Monday, Thursday.
No, no, no,
I know what you're looking at. No, it's a separate book. That's the Chabad has a separate book.
Ah,
Slichos
separate
for this
book.
time of year. So yes, the book, the ones you see in the Siddur, yeah, I should have gotten that. There are slichos for each fast day, for Tanis Esther, for
Yeah.
Tzom Gedalia, for the 17th of Tammuz, and then there's also there are fast. So some people fast also Monday, Thursday, Mondays and Thursdays. It's called Bahab. It's like 3 times a year they do a Monday Thursday sequence of fast. But that's
Okay, so if we don't have the separate book for slichas for Chabad style, and I was looking on Chabad.org, I couldn't find the text, but
okay. It
it
should
means
be
we don't.
there. If not, bother them and they'll point you to the point where on Chabad.org where they have it. I believe there is a Kahos Siddur on online, so you can probably find it there. But you can always ping them. And I haven't looked at their site for a long time. I don't know exactly where you would find it.
So you said that the slichas before Rosh Hashanah supposed to be in
are
a
a separate
separate
book.
book, not in
Small, thin
Siddur.
book. Yeah, it's a small thin book. It's about 15 pages for each day, and that's and it goes for a week. So it starts the Motzi Shabbos, and then it has one for each day up to the Erev Rosh Hashanah.
Okay, thank you.
Different slichos.
We don't have it. Thank
The
you.
text. That's a different text. Yeah, thank you for the question. That was
Thank you.
okay. Oh, so that was all recorded.
Okay, good. Okay, hello, everybody.
As long as you know who it is.
Does anybody want to make a comment before I start? Okay, so I'm going to start with what I usually start with, and that is that we're in a unique time. We're in a unique time. The Rebbe said that we are in the beginning, we are in the unfolding of the redemption, and nobody ever expected the beginning of the redemption, the Yemos Mashiach, to be a calm, easy time. I think that sages from hundreds of years ago davened that they shouldn't be at this time because it's so tumultuous. So, but anyway, that's where we are, and it's a good thing because this is the time the Jews have been waiting for thousands and thousands of years, and we're living through it. So, so the first thing is that okay, we're in the beginning of the time of the redemption. The second thing is that our souls were handpicked to be in this time because we each have a critical role to play. The third thing I like to say is that we were given all the tools we need to navigate this time. We were given the Torah, and we were given, which is our guidebook, and we were given the mitzvahs, which are our power tools, and we were also given other Jews to consult with, and that's a very important part as well. And finally, what we're doing tonight, by learning about the redemption, actively speeds it up. The Rebbe says that there's nothing that speeds it up faster than learning about it. So I don't know how to make this less blurry. For some reason, like all of a sudden it's not blurry. Okay, so as Yechezkal said, oh, we had such an incredible year in this past year, and who expected it? And from start to finish, Simchas Torah was at the beginning of the year, and Simchas Torah it's at the end of Tishrei, the first month of the Jewish year, and from then on, it's been what a roller coaster ride. And even though, and for all of us, and especially for the Jews in Israel, it doesn't stop. It just hasn't stopped. And the anti-Semitism around the world is just absolutely insane. I've never been through a year like this in my life, and I'm been around for a while. And so anyway, how can we expect good when we see such devastation? How can we expect good? So the idea is that Hashem does things that really blow our circuits. He really does. He absolutely does things that blow our circuits. But we have to know that that's because those are our circuits. And we have to know that there is going to be light. There is going to be, and we have to, when we have troubles in our own life, we have to cut Hashem some slack and know that there is going to be light out of this that I'm going through right now. There is going to be light, and by cutting Hashem some slack, by saying, you know, Hashem, I don't understand what you're doing, but I know that you're leading me to a good place. Then the revelation of that good comes quicker. We don't do that with regard to other people's troubles. With regard to other people's troubles, we don't cut Hashem slack. We say, Hashem, you have to save these people. You have to, this cannot go on. We don't cut Hashem any slack with regard to others, but with regard to ourselves, it is a marvelous way to get to the good news faster by cutting Hashem some slack and saying, you know, I trust you. I know that this is going to be good. I just know it. So, okay, good. So, and that's what it says in the parsha that we just did. It's Savim Vayelech. It's a double parsha. And it's Savim. It says, you are all standing today, Lifnei Hashem. You're all standing before Hashem. As long as we remember that we are before Hashem and Hashem is running everything, and Hashem, just like, I always say it, Hashem plans how many hairs are going to go on this side of my wig and how many hairs are going to go on the other side of my wig. He plans every single detail of your life, and everything out of the most enormous love for us that we can't even conceive of Hashem's love. If you take your mother's love for you, if you had a good relationship with your mother, and you multiply it by 17 billion, you will not get to Hashem's love for you. And that everything that Hashem does for you is absolutely good. So I'm just going to tell. I have to say that in my own life, there have been times when I say, Hashem, what are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? I don't get it. What are you doing to me? And, when things have been mind-boggling, one thing after another. And if you hang in there long enough, a mentor of mine, Mrs. Cohen, said that she had a holy uncle, I believe, who used to say, if you live long enough, you'll see that it all works out. So anyway, I'm going to tell a tiny story that I heard. And
can you repeat what Mrs. Cohen said? I couldn't hear it.
He had an older, it was a male relative. I don't know if it was an uncle or what. And he used to say, if you live long enough, you see it'll all work out. And
okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I never heard that.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's a little story. I could tell a lot of stories from my own life, but I'm going to just tell this little story that I just heard this week. And I heard the story from Rabbi Zalman Tachtel of Chabad of Kansas University of Kansas. So anyway, it's about a young couple. I'm not going to tell it. I'm going to tell it briefly. It's about a young couple named Joseph and Sarah, and they married, and they dearly wanted to have children, and nothing was happening. And they tried everything. They tried all the medicine. They tried IVF. They tried everything, and nothing was happening. Year after year were elapsing. And after a while, they decided, you know what? We're still going to keep trying to have our own kids. But they just read about how in China, baby girls are abandoned. They're not considered useful. And also there's a law, there's a limit on how, I think I don't know if it's still that way, but for many, many, many years, it was limited to one baby per family. And so people kept their boys, and they would give up their girls. They would put them, like yeah. Anyway, so so they thought, how horrible. Why don't we rescue one of these baby girls and adopt them? We'll still continue with our hishtadlus. We'll still continue with our efforts to have our own child, but let's get one of those girls and bring her home. So they started the process. It's quite an extensive process, and they continued their treatments. And lo and behold, after another few IVF treatments, they were expecting twins, and they were so excited. They couldn't believe it, but they're already pretty far along in their adoption process, and they didn't know what to do. They had their hearts set on adopting a baby from China, but on the other hand, they're going to have their own twins. Can they really handle new twins and a new little girl? Can they really handle that? And they spoke about it for hours, and they decided, we can't do this. We just can't handle it. And so reluctantly, they stopped the adoption process. After 3 months of the pregnancy, unfortunately, one of the twins didn't make it. One of the twins died. Whatever. And the pregnancy continued with the one child, and Baruch Hashem, the child was born healthy and perfectly healthy. They named her Miriam, and not long after Miriam's birth, they started thinking, we have one child now. Maybe we should do it. Maybe we should continue with that adoption. Maybe we should continue the process, whether this baby or they give us another baby. Maybe we should do it. And they decided, yes, let's do it. So they started the process all over again, or they resumed the process, and they got all the way through. And there was one last thing that they had to do. They had to, you have to go to a doctor, the husband and the wife, there are age limits for adopting, because they want to make sure that the couple will be around when this kid gets older. That this baby will have somebody to take care of them throughout its youth. And so the woman went to she went to her doctor, got a clean bill of health, and he went to his doctor, got a clean bill of health. And as he was leaving the doctor's office, and the doctor signed the papers saying that this guy's perfectly healthy, Joseph is perfectly healthy, the doctor said, you know what? Can you do me a favor? I know I signed the paper already. I know I gave it to you already, but I'm just like a thorough kind of guy. And there is one test that they didn't request, but it's something that I like to give to somebody to make sure that they're fit as a fiddle. And do you mind? And the guy was a little irritated, but the doctor was insistent. He said, I just want to give you a routine chest x-ray. That's it. And so they did the routine chest x-ray, and the doctor called the guy back into the office, and he said, we actually saw something, and I think you should go get a CAT scan. And so Joseph went and got a CAT scan, and they found a very tiny growth of an extremely rare and very, very serious form of lung cancer. And the doctor said, it is small enough that we can get rid of it now. And we can get rid of it now. If you had come just a little while earlier, it would have been too tiny for us to even see. We would have missed it entirely. And if you came a little while later, it would be too far gone for us to get. It's an amazing thing that you came just at this moment. His head was spinning. He couldn't believe it. He went home and he talked to his wife, and they were thinking, you know what? This whole thing, the adoption collapsing, and then having two babies, and then one of them passing away, and then us reconsidering the adoption and resuming it right now. Every single step of this way is saving my life. Every single tragedy is if it hadn't been exactly this timing, I wouldn't be alive in a few months. I wouldn't be alive. So he went through the whole. They removed the growth. He again went back to get a bill of health from the doctor. The doctor signed off that this guy is fine, and they resumed the adoption. And they got their baby. They flew to China, to a place called Gansu, and on just before Rosh Hashanah, they had adopted the baby and they brought it to the Chabad house in Gansu, and they named it, and they did the baby naming, and they called her Eliana, and Eliana is God answered me. And so, how did God answer her? How did God answer the father? She saved her father's life. She literally saved her father's life because the effort to get her, he would never have done a routine chest X-ray. Who young man, what did he need it for? So anyway, it looked like crazy things happened, and one strange thing after another, and difficulties and traumas and infertility and the one baby loss and having to give up the first adoption and then resuming it many months later. All of it was orchestrated so this guy could live. And so I've seen it in my own life. Things like, what are you doing, Hashem? And you see that Hashem is eventually going to open a door for you. He's eventually going to open a door for you, but you have to have faith that he's going to do it. And so anyway, this whole thing that's happening to us now, it's totally incomprehensible what's happening to the Jewish people. Absolutely incomprehensible. But we as a people have to know, not even believe, we have to know that God is doing something bigger than we can imagine. And all the anti-Semitism and all the personal tsuras that people have so many personal difficulties. We're swimming in personal difficulties. And we have to know that it is going, there will be light, and there will be light, and there will be tremendous light. So we just have to cut Hashem some slack and trust the process. So, and daven for each other, and wish each other a sweet, sweet, sweet year, and have achdus, have unity, because there's nothing that speeds. Okay, learning about the redemption is extremely powerful, but achdus is the reason. Lack of achdus is the reason we're not. It was the reason we were thrown into exile. Loving another Jew is huge with Hashem. It's just huge. So anyway, with that, I'm going to wish everybody a Shana Tova Umetuka, and I'm going to turn off the recorder, and I'm going to stay on for just a couple of minutes because it's a busy night tonight. Okay.
Hopefully I'll see you over Sukkot or something. All the best to you and your